So I guess I'll go back a slide. And Clarissa, do you want to introduce yourself first?
Yeah, for sure I can. So I'm Clarissa Kennedy. Just so you guys know a bit about my personal background, I do have recovery from eating disorders, food addiction, and substance use disorder. I started in the field about 2011, and that was, part of my own recovery was then going to university to take mental health and addiction. So then I worked in substance use treatment at a shelter system for, I would say, 3 years. During that time, I decided to pursue a social work degree, and that was in Indigenous social work, which really appealed to me the most, the very holistic perspective. And so then I got the opportunity to create a youth program at the shelter that had never been done before. And so it was really a harm reduction program, allowing youth to access, and then we would monitor them and the under the influence throughout the night, rather than making them go to the hospital, get cleared, and then be able to come back to shelter. And, it's been pretty amazing that program has now been modeled in most of Ontario. And so I worked in that field for about, I would say, 10 years. And then I still had my own story of struggling with just getting completely off alcohol. And so, as I don't know, I've shared it on the podcast. I always went into treatment sober with, the idea of like, I'm just going to figure out what I need to know now. And in the last treatment center was where I met Dr. Vera Tarman, and she introduced me to the concept of food addiction. And from there, I went to Iceland. Then I trained with Esther Helga Goodsman daughter, and then I did Bitten's program. And then I just launched my own private practice. And I'll tell you then where I went from there after Molly introduces herself.
Yeah. So as many of you know, I'm a licensed clinical professional counselor and a licensed addiction counselor in the state of Montana. I've been in the field since 2005, originally starting in what is called corrections or community corrections, which means that we were a pre-release facility. So it was all male. So these men were coming from the Montana State Prison and other Department of Correction programs, meaning they, in order to get into our program, they had to have a crime that was directly related in some way to substance use disorder. So we had a lot of individuals, manufacturing of a clandestine lab, which is, making meth, felony distribution of a dangerous drug. It was often heroin, meth, cocaine, that kind of thing. We also had guys who were in there for felony marijuana possession. That is a thing that no longer exists in our state, which is a fabulous thing. And then we had gentlemen where it was like DUIs, you know, um, manslaughter because they had been like in a a DUI situation and somebody had lost their life. So I worked with those gentlemen. I was at that facility for 8 years. While I was there, I also then picked up another job working at the local crisis center where I answered suicide hotline, the national suicide hotline, the local suicide hotline, and I was a sexual assault counselor, meaning that when there was an assault in the valley, if the survivor went to the hospital to be taken care of and to make report, if it was my shift, I reported to the hospital. It didn't matter what time it was because they were 24-hour shifts, and walked that survivor through the process and then did follow-up free counseling with that person. And I worked there for many years as well. All the while also in private practice. While I was in private practice, I contracted with the Department of Corrections. So people on probation, parole, and conditional release. I worked closely with Child Protective Services, and the local court system would often refer people to me for chemical dependency evaluations, but also as like a diversion, so as to like keep people out of jail, out of institutions because of substance use disorder. So fast forward to 17, and I started my food recovery journey. Quickly after that, I found Vera's book and said, oh my God, I'm a licensed addiction counselor. How did I not know this was a thing? And immediately started looking for programs. I eventually found Esther's and did complete the Impact program in 2020. I think early 2020 is like when the program completed. I also trained with Bitten's with in the sugar and then the HMA. And then so then that brings us to, you know, kind of the continuation of our story. So Clarissa and I actually met in 2019 at the Impact like intensive, I guess, if you will, when it was held in Canada. Clarissa was there helping to facilitate as she had already completed hers in Iceland. In 2020, we partnered with Dr. Vera Tarman to launch the Food Junkies podcast, which then it actually launched in January 2021, but obviously Vera and Toxin had started interviews several months prior. In January 2021, we teamed up with Jen Unwin and Heidi Yiver and Charlotte and Frida for our food addiction research clinical study. In September 2022, the paper that Jen wrote about our research was published in Frontiers in Psychiatry, and it's actually still doing very well, if I remember correctly. Clarissa, you can correct me if I'm wrong. And in November 2022, we launched Sweet Sobriety, and we're going to talk about that today. We are clinically trained and we're always upgrading our knowledge so we can offer our clients and participants like a variety of treatment modalities to work with us. Bethany Mazaru and Victoria Hama have joined us on the Sweet Sobriety team since we launched. And so I don't know, did you want to say anything else about our origin story there, Clarissa?
No, I think that's enough. That was good.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And obviously we can't do it alone. So it has been amazing to have some help along the way, to have teammates. So to talk a bit about our study, I just wanted to share kind of like the criteria for people who could participate in our study. They had to basically self-identify as being addicted to sugar, sweets, carbs, snack, processed food, hyperpalatable, ultra-processed industrial foods. And we gave them some examples. Maybe they identified with, I'm a lifelong chocoholic or carbaholic. They had no control over certain foods, can't stop binging on certain foods, don't know what to eat, but can't, or like knowing what to eat, but couldn't stick with it. Tried so many diets, they couldn't stay stopped. We excluded anyone who had had previous treatment for food addiction. So again, these were brand new people to the idea of like actual treatment intervention. They had to be 18 and older. They could not be pregnant. They could not be diagnosed with a serious mental health problem where a clinician recommended against it. So we did have several people who did go ahead and get permission from their mental health team. So psychiatrists, psychologists, we had people weigh in. And then any sort of exclusion criteria that may have been recommended by their general practitioner or their primary care provider. So this was the initial, hey, are you interested? Join us. And then we had screening calls with folks to make sure that they, were going to be a good fit and that we weren't going to cause more harm or create an issue that didn't already exist. Anything else you'd want to add there, Clarissa?
No, I was just trying to remember exactly how many people we probably went through our program. Was it like 150 or like?
It was somewhere between 100 and 150 that actually went through the program. However, we did take on after the first group, we did take on more people who had previous treatment or were working with us. We just didn't include their data. So within that number of people who completed, not all of them were like brand new to treatment. Yep. So then we were considered the North American program in the study. So again, there was the UK team and the Sweden team, and then we were the North American team. So our program was 10 weeks. We collected data pre and post the 10-week intervention. We continue to collect data. Now we're at 12, 18, and 24 month data collection. Everybody has their 6 months in. It included pre-recorded materials. So each of the modules, Clarissa and I split up the module work and created videos, like video presentations that were pre-recorded. We created worksheets and resources that they could download, print out, write on, bind in a book, however they want to use it. And so then what happened is we would have 2-hour weekly groups where we would come and people would present their homework and we would process what they were going through. We would offer support in whatever they needed support in. And they would get obviously the advantage of the peer support from their group members. And after the 10-week initial intervention, and we're still in this phase as well, we do once a month have a 1-hour follow-up group for 24 months post their 10-week intervention. So we'll be doing that for a while. So the 10-week intervention included, like, we gave education, and maybe I should let you talk about that module, Clarissa, because that one was more yours. Go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. So our focus really in this was really trying to get people to do the self-directed food plan. So eliminating anything that they felt really, created an addiction response. But we focused only on ultra processed foods because that's what the research is showing us are the addictive foods. So we were really trying to have them, we encourage them to have as inclusive a food plan as possible. And this was really the main week where we talked about food. In our other groups, it was, we certainly talked about the struggles with food, but this is where we talked about food plans. We presented them with a bunch of different options and really wanted them to pick what they felt was going to be the best fit for them. And as well, like modifications along the way, which we supported. And so doing the modules this way is really what Molly and I had already found had worked so well with the private clients we were seeing. It's kind of the way that we would see some of these topics, issues come up. And so that's the reason behind the way we created this program. So we started with food addiction and mindful eating, then moved to abstinence and withdrawal. And here we talked a lot about tools, whether it's glutamine or what to expect so that they would know. And so in the psychoeducation piece, in the first group, what we did was, I think we actually we taught in the group and then, left it open for a little bit of processing after. What we found was that it just didn't seem to be the best fit. And so what we ended up doing was recording and then having the 2-hour groups as just process question and answers, really, that we found that really helped develop and build group cohesion. So after abstinence withdrawal, we did craving management. We talked about cross addiction, what that looks like. In the hope and resilience module, we had some former group members come back and talk about their experience thus far. Then we did addressing thoughts and behaviors, a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy there. We talked about the things that we know are the triggers once we get into food sobriety, which was stress management, emotional management. And then we really thought it was important to include that self-compassion piece and body image. And we knew, in a 10-week intervention, nobody's going to be able to get to a point where they start to really address body image, but maybe it was just a little bit more of psychoeducation about where their recovery journey is going to take them. Do you have anything to add, Mal?
No, yeah, I thank you for pointing out the reason why we put these modules in that order came from our clinical experience from all of those years working in mental health and addiction, right? There's this pattern to, there's a general theme to how like this kind of goes when people are working on things. And so we really set it up in that order. So yep, that's actually a very important distinction to make, as well as we reminded people over and over and over again, this 10-week intervention was really just to dip toes. It was just to get started. And we have group members from the intervention where we are collecting data on them still, reach back out to us or talk to us in our follow-up groups each month to say, listen, I still go back and rewatch those videos. I still go back and redo those homeworks or find one that I didn't do at the time and I'm doing it now. And it's just like helping me to see more and more. So what does our model look like today? So we Clarissa and I, again, coming from that background, especially dealing with low socioeconomic status individuals, individuals who are often, criminalized because of addiction and mental health, people who lost children, lost homes, lost families, because of it. And knowing the pain that it, like watching pain. I mean, at one point in my career, I was doing 20 or more chemical dependency evaluations a month to get people into treatment. And it's something like only 10% of people who need treatment actually receive it, because there are so many barriers, right? Like programs are full, they don't take your insurance, or maybe you don't have insurance. Out of pocket, to pay out of pocket is, thousands of dollars that these folks don't have. So Clarissa and I really had a similar vision in wanting to give a low cost, high quality treatment intervention, so that people could start to get the help that they needed. So our program is based, it has that psychoeducation base. So we took that 10-week intervention and we turned it into what we call our foundations course. So it's based on not only our research, but also, again, we used evidence-based practices in those 10-week interventions based on what we knew to be true from working with clients previously outside of food addiction. We're all about empowerment and self-compassion and encouraging self-direction. We really tell the client and believe that the client is the expert in them. We are very inclusive. Our job is to be really good at asking really good questions, offering really good interventions and support. We're huge on inclusivity. I think that we've done a really good job. If I could just like pat ourselves on the back or like sing our praises a little bit, like I really feel like we've built a culture of inclusivity that is like comparable to none. Where I use solution-focused brief therapy. Clarissa is really good at motivational interviewing. We do use some DBT skills, definitely a lot of CBT, somatic practices. We are trauma-informed clinicians, which means that we're also very good at being able to read the room. And when it looks like somebody is being overwhelmed by somebody's share, we can pause what's going on. We can get everybody regulated back to, somewhere in that window of tolerance so that we can continue to move forward. We highly encourage people to parallel process. Hey, this person is sharing. I notice you're kind of like staring off into space. Are you okay? Are you high? Are you having a seizure? Right? Like we try to do that kind of thing. We offer new workshops monthly. So these cover things like Clarissa just did one on making peace with perfectionism. Bethany has done two. Actually, she did one on like surviving the holidays and vacation. She did one on like you are not what you weigh. I've done one on emotional eating. We run a foundations one. So that's free to anybody who's purchased foundations quarterly. We offer group coaching for $25 a month US, and it's unlimited. So we have 5 groups a week right now, and you can come to as many or as a few of them as you want for that $25 US. We also are in the process of putting together our first live meetup in October. And we are going to have speakers, some of whom are here today, like Pamela. I don't know if Jennifer's here now. I can't see everybody. We're going to have workshops. We're going to have somatic experiencing group activities, that kind of thing. So a little bit more to dive a little bit deeper on like what sweet sobriety really is. To us, coming from the world of substance use disorders, addiction, and mental health, prior to niching down to food, it was really important that we stayed true to our North Star, which is harm reduction. Clarissa and I are truly harm reduction clinicians, which means that we accept for people there are benefits and consequences of drug use, alcohol use, ultra processed food use, and that people have been doing these things since the beginning of human species. We really like to focus more on decreasing immediate harms versus then like striving for like that drug-free right society. So think an ultra processed food-free society. So for some clients, it might be, how do we just get you to stop binging and purging right now? Because that's really the crocodile closest to your life raft. For some people, it's nope, you continue to eat these things and your liver is in failure. What are our next steps? Right. So it's very individualized, but it is about harm reduction. We talk a lot about low exposure foods, low exposure experiences. If you're, if you're going to put that food in your mouth, is it going to cause you to binge or crave? If so, is there something else, a more loving option for you? We focus on the harm, not on the substance. Again, the binge purge thing, we give people choices and access to like a broad range of options. So the method that I use, I might ask somebody like, so how do you imagine that tomorrow you're going to have a binge-free day? Would you pick out and plan your food tonight? Would you maybe prep food tonight? Do you know where you would go and order food? That kind of thing. So we really try to give people a bunch of options to kind of get them thinking about what works for me, what's best for me, my life, what I've got going on. We make their goals and priority. We focus on what they see is the most important need. It's not about me. I don't live their life. Maybe they have 5 kids, work for themselves, and like to walk their neighbors' dogs every day. Like they cannot live their life according to Molly or Clarissa or Bethany or Vika and think that this is going to be a lifetime change. We believe small gains do add up over time. We've watched this with our clients who have been with us from the beginning to today. Clarissa and I were actually just reflecting on that yesterday about a particular individual that we've just seen grow leaps and bounds over the last 18 months or so. And we recognize that people do know what's best for them and they're doing the best they can with what they have. So I really work from a place of everybody has really good reasons for doing the things that they do. And it usually is because of safety. Clarissa, would you want to add anything to our harm reduction approach?
No, I think you covered it perfectly.
Okay. So we really do work then at the intersection of food addiction and eating disorders. And I'm going to let Clarissa take over for this one.
Yep. So we know that both eating disorders and food addiction fall on a spectrum. And when we talk about working with individuals and what sweet sobriety is, we are really looking to work with anyone who is looking to improve their relationship with food and body. And we know that there's a ton of comorbidity between eating disorder and food addiction. We also know eating disorder can happen before food addiction, or food addiction can happen and then eating disorder behaviors take place. And we really just wanted to highlight the importance of knowing about both eating disorders and food addiction when we're working in this field. We were having conversations earlier about, certain individuals who we may have originally thought, is this a volume addiction or is this binge eating disorder? That now that, even they've removed these highly rewarding foods, they're still experiencing binge episodes because the treatment for food addiction and binge eating disorder are very different. And so it's really important for us to be able to identify what we're working with and have some clinical training in both fields, and just be able to also know like what would be the best next step that we could do that is actually going to help this person. So and these stats that I put on here are all from the David Wiss's paper on the clinical considerations of ultra processed food addiction across weight classes.
Absolutely. Here. I'm all for I'm here for understanding that there is a spectrum in there, and that when we are not aware of that, we are doing our clients a disservice. And again, I think we feel so strongly about that. Clarissa, please stop me if I'm putting words in your mouth, but I think that we feel so strongly about that because we do have that mental health, other addiction background, that we know that it's hard to actually, as much as we want to be able to just like piece part out, like, oh, it's this. Sometimes I think that that's like really part of the addiction too. Like it becomes very concrete or very black and white. And the truth is like, this is very messy and complicated and complex. And so I feel that my clients, our clients benefit when we're able to kind of come at it from this like trauma informed, like bigger picture
Right. And I
approach.
think that that is also a really good point is that, for a lot of people who work in food addiction, they're always going to see everything from a food addiction lens. So they're only going to see it that way. Or if you're in eating disorder, you're only going to see it from an eating disorder lens. And that can be really harmful for the client. So we really need to take that step back and figure out what is it that I am seeing. And our biggest thing is do no harm. And we have certainly had individuals come to Sweet Sobriety from 12-step programs that maybe they were seeking as, a diet in the first place. And that restriction has really amplified now where they're at. And it did cause harm. And so now it is us trying to figure out like, how can we allow them to be more inclusive? That's when, before they attended some of those programs, they were not having these binge purge episodes before, or, one day on, one day off, that level of restriction really did amplify some of their eating disorder behaviors. And so our goal, just trying to come from the place of like a harm reduction, is how can we help this individual in front of us? How are they presenting? What would be their best next step, the most loving steps that they can take next?
Yes. Love it. Okay. So you want to go ahead?
Yeah, for sure. Also, as being clinicians, we know it's very important for us to be aware of the other mental health disorders that can co-occur with food addiction. We know that there's definitely impulsivity, and we also know that likely there's going to be a history of trauma. It could be early childhood experiences, it could be psychological, sexual, or physical abuse. And that this is why it's so important for us to be trauma informed. And the other, I think, piece that we often deal with is depression, anxiety. And so we have to have other solutions, and we feel like it's important to have training in those areas as well, so that we are able to help, like Molly said, co-regulate people, or identify like, is this depression right now that's showing up, or is it food addiction? Is anxiety created or caused by the foods you're eating, or is generalized anxiety disorder just there on its own and not food related? And so this is where it's very important for us that Sweet Sobriety and the individuals we're involved with have that clinical backgrounds, just so that they can work with all mental health disorders.
Absolutely. I mean, so, and I'm sure Clarissa works the same as I do in this matter, but I'm always assessing, like I'm not necessarily asking in group, whoever is in the process of like having their coaching time in group, I'm not necessarily asking them these questions about their mental health, but I'm always kind of assessing. I'm like listening for, have things started to change, improve, have things started to de-escalate or decompensate. Oh, I heard something a little interesting. I'm going to check and see if there's a delusion, or, you know what I mean? Like, oh, this person's acting a little weird. Is this person high? We've had that. We've had people come high to group before. And so it's a unique experience that people get to have, because this is the kind of stuff that we're actually well versed in, and can address and call out and coach people around. And so, yeah, it's again, because that's our background, it's important to us that we do that. Oops, there we go. So that leads us into, then obviously, because we have backgrounds in other substances of abuse and process addiction, we often end up working with our clients on that, right? Because as we know, many times there's cross addiction, one disease, many outlets, like however, you want to frame that for yourself. I like to think of it as it just kind of all comes out sideways. Like it's all in the pursuit of the same thing, right? To feel some different kind of way, to not feel at all, Sometimes it literally is for the high, all of those different things. So as you can imagine, because Clarissa and I talk about this a lot on Food Junkies, but also like other interviews that we've done, any sort of work that we do attract individuals who often also want to get off of sleeping pills, opioids, cannabis, alcohol, smoking, tobacco. We've definitely had our fair share of clients who are working to do all of those things. And they, obviously getting off the food as well is a nice kind of support to that. But because we are harm reduction clinicians, we're going to go with what is the thing that's causing them the most problem. If they're coming to me and they're like, listen, I'm on 10 milligram Ambien a day and I have food addiction, guess which one I'm picking first, right? I don't really give a crap about the food right now. 10 milligram of, 10 pills of 10 milligrams each of Ambien a day is crazy, right? Like that is, we need to get this person into treatment. We need to get them off of this. Like they are going to die in their sleep, and not on purpose. So that's the kind of work that sometimes we do end up doing. And that sometimes comes out in group and it sometimes comes out in individual sessions. It doesn't just come out in one place or the other. Anything you would want to add there, Clarissa?
No, I think that that's very important. We also, want to make sure that individuals that would be in a situation like that, we would make sure that they are set up with other mental health professionals or whatever in the area so that they have a treatment team and they're supported appropriately. Because we are just doing, group coaching. A lot of our clients are one-on-one clients are actually Sweet Sobriety members as well. But if there was an area of concern, we absolutely would want to make sure that any individual would be supported by a level of care or treatment team in an area where they are located, because we have clients or participants from all over the world.
Yep, absolutely. And thank you for bringing that up, because absolutely, I've helped clients in other countries track down, up to 3 different professionals that I thought might be a good fit for them just based on what I've known. I've done warm handoffs. I've done research into like inpatient treatment facilities. I've called locals before to say like, listen, this person is a danger to themselves or others, so I guess that's the kind of level that we go to. And again, Clarissa and I are technically mandatory reporters, and so we probably take that pretty seriously, or I know I take it pretty seriously. I'm pretty sure Clarissa does too. So again, that's the kind of service, again, that high quality intervention that we want to provide people at that lower cost. So this was just kind of a recap of the harm reduction. I actually messed up and the slide is in the wrong place, but just as a reminder, harm reduction works. It's well researched, it's evidence-based, and it's shown to be effective. It's not to encourage people to use substances or like ultra processed foods. It's just a non-judgmental approach that creates opportunities for people to start making choices for themselves that moves them in the direction that they want to go. Just remember that there are 2 sides to every coin, right? We accept with harm reduction, we accept that people experience benefits and consequences. That goals around harm reduction are often about decreasing, and the ultimate goal of harm reduction, of course, is 0, would be complete and total abstinence. But that would be my goal. That's not necessarily my client's goal. And just because our goals don't align doesn't mean I'm right and they're wrong. And that there is an I in win, right? That a harm reduction respects individuals' goals, autonomy, all of that. It allows people to focus on what they feel is their most immediate needs, and it gives them access to a broad range of options, which again, like can be the catalyst that just gets the ball rolling for them to, right, want to make changes for themselves.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to note just there that an abstinence only approach can be a huge barrier to treatment if that's their only option. We will experience individuals who are either on program or off program. And they're often and this is a lot to do with diet culture, but they'll be completely off program because they are just so unwilling to go back to the rigidity of an abstinent food plan. And so if they are able to live in the gray, which is very much what we encourage, it may be much easier that maybe they don't have to be just on plan or off plan. Maybe they can be working towards a plan that's going to be best for them, and that is a better fit for them. And there will also be those individuals that abstinence only works for. And so it's really important for us to just continue to listen to what we're hearing from each individual so we can help guide them, because I certainly work with individuals who are doing harm reduction, and for them the recovery community is everything. And if they were not allowed to be included in our recovery community because maybe they're still eating sugar or flour, that would make them completely isolated, which is why we choose to allow all people with all food plans. We have people doing carnivore, whatever. But again, most of our meetings, we have a Monday meeting, which is really where we allow people to come and speak about the food, maybe ask food plan questions, get more psychoeducation around that. But the rest of our groups are really just about what is something you're working on that has been going better, and what is something you're working on that you might need some support around and you want to ask a question about or speak to us about a situation.
Absolutely. And another important note about abstinence, we do not define somebody else's abstinence. We really work with our clients to let them flesh out what their abstinence means to them. So again, kind of going along with, like, we don't give a prescribed food plan. We do give some education where we think education is necessary, but again, along with that harm reduction approach, we believe, right, that they know best. So somebody's abstinence might look like a carnivore food plan, but somebody else's abstinence might look like, I'm just not eating sugar and takeout. And we meet them where they're at. And again, that goes back to that community, that culture of inclusivity. And like Clarissa was just saying, that community has been everything. And people come and come and come, and they hear what other people are doing, and they start to go, oh, maybe I can do that. I've noticed that is going not so well for me too. They're doing that. How did they do that? Maybe I can do that. So yeah. Okay. I will move on to, we're going to give you just a quick demo. So this is our website. It's always a work in progress because I'm learning a brand new platform called Zenler. But when you come like this, anybody can just come to our website and it looks like this. You can click on any of these and there's some information there about the different eating disorders. We talk a bit about what is food addiction, that kind of thing. So then you would want to, if you've never registered for our site, you would register for our site, but I'm going to go ahead and sign in, and hopefully it doesn't make me tell them that I'm not a robot. Okay, there we go. So when you log in, it looks very similar to the first page, but what you will see is if you're signed up for courses, you'll see them here. You'll see our calendar of things that you can register for. You'll see all courses that are available to you. Like right now, you'll see like we've got the meetup and some different options for the meetup. We've got right now, Vika is running her Invisible Power Within course, which includes some hypnotherapy and cognitive behavioral pieces to it. Bethany's You Are Not What You Weigh. This is the thing. We do live workshops every month, and then when they're done, we turn them into a home study. So I still have to turn Clarissa's into a home study. Get that done. There's my emotional eating one. They're different prices. Some are 25, some are 50. All the live ones are 50. Group coaching is 25. And then, oh, sorry, excuse me. If you keep scrolling all the way down or at the top, you'll see that we have communities. So here are different communities that I'm in. So there's one for this, every course has its own community. So like, here's one for the modules. People who are doing the modules can like put stuff here. Here's the, people who are signed up for group coaching can like post here. So like here, Clarissa put up a resource because they must have talked about it in group. Everybody who comes to our website and registers for our website has access to the community nuts and bolts. So here somebody was saying like, hey, I couldn't get in, Clarissa answered. Somebody's like, how do I cancel? Clarissa answered. We're answering questions about Toronto, that kind of thing. So you can also access that at the top. Across the top here, if I get some of these boxes out of the way, you can go to my community. It'll pop up the same. It's just bigger, looks a little different. We have frequently asked questions. We have a media page where you can go, where Clarissa and I have done different interviews. We have our Sweet Sobriety stories there. So all the interviews I've been doing for the YouTube channel. You can sign up for our newsletter, all of that. So Bethany, do we leave anything out that we should have shared?
No, I think that was pretty comprehensive. I think we do individual coaching as well, right?
Yeah. Yes. Oh, sure. Absolutely. So we do offer that. Absolutely. Yep. And people have the choice, and each one of us kind of does our own thing for the individual, but a lot of people come to Sweet Sobriety, or they'll come to us as individuals, and we'll say like, listen, you might really want to look at this platform, at this other option as well. And so I do have a lot of clients who do both. They love the group coaching, they love the workshops, but then they also love their individual time with me. And I offer 30-minute sessions, which I don't know that Clarissa and Bethany do, but I offer 30-minute or 60-minute sessions. So what often happens for me is I have people who will go to 1 or 2 group coachings a week. Maybe they're they like to do the monthly workshop, and then they see me for a half an hour, like every week or every other week. And it's like this really kind of beautiful, like little program that they've put together for themselves that really works for them. So, okay, so this is the Sweet Sobriety Foundation's course. So this is like me logged in, and let's say I want to do module 1. I'll just pick, or module 2. So here's what it looks like. A video will pop up. I can start playing the video. We've got our little thing. And then if we keep scrolling down, here's like where the downloads will be. Then you can like pop into the next one, biochemical repair. Again, there's a video, there's things to download. And the same is true for all the modules. Some have, that's the thing about the foundations course, is that we expanded on what we had taken from the first 10 weeks. So there are hours upon hours of video. Some of them, like this one, I had to break into 3 parts because I didn't want somebody to have to sit through like 2 hours of video at one go. So I broke them into like 30-minute chunks. Hope and resilience, we took the recorded videos from some of our hope sharers, and we put them together in this like really beautiful video. So the videos just play, and then you move on to the next thing.